and the impacts on business are not getting better. As a matter of fact, we just saw through the statistics through the RCMP that it is in fact getting worse. That may be because more people are reporting. We've been encouraging report when there's crime.
Thank you for tuning in to the Crisis Storm, where we talk about the crises in our community here in Kamloops, from homelessness to substance use disorder, from mental health to impacts on the economy and a breakdown in communication. Today is our 7th episode overall, or our second one of the 2024 season. And we are joined in the studio here with Howie Reimer, the Executive Director of the Kamloops Central Business Improvement Association. Howie, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, broadcaster turned Executive Director of the Business Association downtown.
What was I thinking?
A little bit about that.
Yeah, I spent 33 years in broadcasting in Vancouver and then in Kamloops, moved up in 1993. Took a job with NL Broadcasting and was there for 27 years, including a stint as the first morning show host of Country 103.1. And after, I'll be very frank, after a sale of ownership, or through ownership, I decided it was time to try something different, and had a great broadcasting is a fun career, first love of my life, and then this opportunity to be a community builder. When I first moved to Kamloops, I thought, you know, we're going to be here maybe 5 years and then I'm going to move on in my broadcasting career. But when you put down roots and your kids start in different schools, they start playing sports, and coming from Vancouver, never really had that sense of community that we felt here. And we fell in love with the place, and we raised our kids here, and now I want to be part of it. I love our downtown. Sure, it has some issues, it has some problems, but I think it is one of the jewels of our area, and I'm very proud to represent it and the business owners and property owners in that area.
Coming from Vancouver, you've probably seen a lot of what a down spiral in crises in community can look like, especially with, you know, downtown east side and places like that. Kamloops, let's just dive right in. Crises in our community. What does that look like here? What are you most concerned about from Executive Director of the Downtown Association?
Just quickly back to seeing what I saw in Vancouver growing up. The downtown east side existed even back then, but it was one block. It was Main and Hastings. Recently, I went down to an event. Oddly enough, it was going to be on a much different part of town. And I went through the downtown east side and saw blocks and blocks and blocks of homeless. This was before they did the sweep under the new mayor, Ken Sims, and absolutely heartbreaking. And when we moved to Kamloops, one of the reasons that we moved from Vancouver was to raise a family, because we were concerned about crime. We were concerned about the gangs that were starting up in Vancouver, and we wanted to raise our kids in a white picket fence community, and we had this very idealistic idea of what it was going to be. Fast forward to 2024 and being in this position for 2 years, and in all honesty, when I first took the position, I was a little naive. I assumed I was going to be planning events, helping out with the Santa Claus parade, doing sales, doing promotions. but the element, the crime and social disruption equation has literally occupied most of my time. I would say between 65 and 75% of my time is on that issue. There is a lot of good work going out there. There's a lot of good people in our community that care. I was recently at an event where there were 18 different organizations represented there, including most of the social agencies. We had community services from the city. We had law enforcement. We had CAR 40, which is now called the Integrated Crisis Response Team. And there's a lot of people that care, but the impacts that are happening to community, and particularly, I represent business. And as much as I care about community, I'm paid by the business owners to improve that district. And the impacts on business are not getting better. As a matter of fact, we just saw through the statistics through the RCMP that it is in fact getting worse. That may be because more people are reporting. We've been encouraging report when there's crime.
Didn't we see in that report though that overall crime was down?
Yes.
But business-related crime
up 8%.
Up 8%.
Yeah, that's break and enters specifically, but also shoplifting and huge concerns. But break and enter and the vandalism, so forth. Yeah, up 8%.
Does that, I mean, 8%, it doesn't sound necessarily like a lot. What does that look like as an impact on businesses in the downtown?
It says it's not getting better. It's getting worse. The opioid crisis declared 8 years ago, 2016.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're seeing an increase in opioid-related deaths, we're seeing an increase in crime. So again, we've got a lot of people doing a lot of good work, but we're still not getting ahead of the curve.
What do you think the reason for that is? Why are we seeing an increase? Why are we not getting ahead of it?
I think, again, the increase could partially be because of an increase in reporting. We have encouraged that because if a crime goes unreported, it doesn't happen, or it didn't happen in the statistics. Statistics are huge when it comes to advocacy, and it also is huge when it comes to allocation of resources. So if the RCMP see that a specific area is a hot spot for specific crimes, for example, break and enter, they know that they can lobby for more resources for that particular area. So it might be a little bit of reporting, but also I think we're not getting a grip on these other areas. There's, there's talk about bail reform. We've still got, I know a lot of people don't like the term catch and release, but that's simply because of the backlog in the court system and some of the laws that also apply. So, and we're seeing an increase in opioid deaths. So I believe that use of drugs on the streets is also up. Most of the crime, I believe, is happening as a result of drug addiction. Homeless, not everybody who's homeless is drug addicted, but a high percentage is. Not everybody that goes to shelter is a drug addict. Not everybody is a criminal, but there is a percentage, and the impacts to business in proximity. And face it, I mean, we do have some facilities, and again, I respect the people that run these facilities and run these programs. The problems is we're not getting enough of the wraparound that we need. And we've heard from Jeremy Heighton, who has a great vision for an integrated access hub of care where it really on paper works. The problem is going to be, and I don't want to say it's a problem, but the challenge is going to be to actually get those resources and have it full time. So back to your original question, it's so many different elements that are part of it, but we're not providing the services, nor are there the consequences in place, the laws. But I think the police are doing a great job. I think they're behind the 8 ball of what they can and can't do. There's a lot of reasons why it's getting worse, but I think we need more treatment, and we need more recovery, and we need more employment programs. You've heard of the Portugal model. It's a more holistic view of treatment, recovery, drug addiction.
It's interesting you said employment programs. So everything up to that point, I was hearing big stick, not carrot, right?
Yes.
But you said employment programs. Why do you think that employment programs play a role in us moving forward in a positive way?
The people the people that are homeless, the people that some are still employed, some are working full time and still can't make ends meet. But employment programs for someone who is on the road to recovery, people want to feel like they're contributing to society, to be called out, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm not happy when I see people in doorways and people that are detracting from the business area. I see people walking around, if someone is high. I actually watched a guy on the street the other day, or he was on the sidewalk, and particularly women walking down would see this and would cross the street, or would walk into the street around a parked car rather than go by. So it's a strange balance of compassion, but my first responsibility is to the business community. So employment programs are important for, I think that's where we're missing. And we start with the decrim and safe supply and all that, but the rest of the continuum of care is and rehabilitation and reintegration into society is not happening. And people want to be contributing to society. I honestly believe that they want to be contributing to community. They don't want to be called names. They don't want to be told to, hey, you're messing up our good business vibe here, get out. That doesn't solve the problem. That moves them out of the way, which, in all honesty, that's one of the reasons why we do events, is to bring people together, but also to discourage that kind of element. So we care, but we also care about our business community and what the optics are.
Right. If we look at the optics for a second, people on the street, people getting high, people, vagrancy downtown, and, the visual sort of aggravators. It's been suggested to me, and I think the study that's been recently done about the numbers may play into this a little bit and educate us a little bit more. I'd like to talk to you about that, but it's been suggested to me that all of this is a symptom of something else that's underlying everything that nobody seems to be talking about. And that's this overall hopelessness of where we are at from a societal perspective. Everything keeps getting more expensive. There are more and more people that are just in a job, not a career, just over broke. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And if one thing happens, they're on the street too. There's no safety net for them anymore. Everybody's living on the edge. and more people are falling on the wrong side of that. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that's a huge socioeconomic issue, which I don't profess to have the answers for. There's so much in there. But I believe that, I mean, it's not just happening in British Columbia, but British Columbia is one of the most expensive places. The cost of living is outrageous. The cost of rent, the cost of housing. So obviously you do need to, you need the programs in place. You need the safety net. You need places for people to go. You need to reintegrate so people are contributing. I don't want to encourage I don't profess to have a socialist sort of viewpoint on it, but someone's got to pay for it sometime. And you either pay for it on the front end or you pay for it on the back end. And right now we're paying for it on the back end. And whether that's emergency services, you've got ambulances and fire trucks and firefighters going to these calls multiple times a day. And is that really the best way to spend our money and our resources? Wouldn't it really be better to go into education and prevention and also into treatment and recovery? So that's a big question, Peter. Mm-hmm. I don't have all the answers, but what I try to do is educate myself, try to bring people together, get people talking, talk to people, advocate, whether it's whatever level of government it is on specific programs or things that we need. And that's one of the reasons why we joined the Save Our Streets Coalition. We were a little hesitant at first. We were a little concerned if there was some political affiliation. We are an apolitical organization. We want change in the programs and in our society. It doesn't necessarily mean we want a change in government, but that's what we do, is we try and get conversations going. This kind of thing is always helpful. You've obviously been educating yourself. You want to help in community, and to see so many people at that event just the other day, it must have been 100 people, 18 different organizations, and a lot of people care. There's not a lot of people that are going, there's nothing we can do about it. Nobody's waving the white flag. We're all trying to make a difference, and we're all trying to improve things. But we need, at this point, I really believe we need better help, particularly from our provincial and our federal governments.
Good point. Before we take a break for a moment, and maybe this is too much to unpack before break, but I just want to ask you, back in November, there was a study. Mm-hmm. And then today, I understand, the province has just come back with the results of another study that was asked for by our city council.
Yes.
Can you unpack that for us as it relates to the crises in our community and your perspective from the Downtown Business Association?
I'll start with the impact study. This was actually commissioned or started by Jeremy Heighton and the North Shore BIA, and his predecessor, Stephen Pahalo. And it is the impacts of crime and social disruption on business. And through 2019 to 2024, we've seen the same pattern, and that is an increase in crime, an increase in costs to business, and whether that's through repairs, repairing windows, replacing stock that's been stolen, or CPTED measures, which is crime prevention through environmental design. So things like putting up fencing and putting up lighting, the costs continue to move up incrementally. And that study shows that there's a lot of work to do. There's, again, not all of this, some of it's perception. So some of the questions ask, you know, your confidence level in community services, or do you call the RCMP? And it shows that that the RCMP, community services, the city of Kamloops, there's not a lot of confidence. And again, I think a lot of people are doing a lot of good work there, but the perception, and I think it's because the reality on the street is that despite all that work, things continue to get worse. So the impact study shows that things are getting progressively worse when it comes to crime and vagrancy and social disruption, particularly in our business districts. The new study, which just came out, and again, this was our city council that had asked the provincial government to do a study on homeless, and again, we've seen an increase over the last couple of years from, I think, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was in the high 200s to now about 480. And these are people that are experiencing homelessness. So they might be living in their cars, they might be living on the street, they might be doing some couch surfing, that kind of thing, or living in shelter. But when they asked them, only 10% were determined to be from out of town. 59% are from Kamloops. So what we're seeing is people falling into homelessness, again, because of the things that you mentioned. You know, people are living paycheck to paycheck. One thing goes wrong, they can be out on the street. So the study was interesting because there's been so much chatter about that people are getting bussed here. It's just not true. And a lot of the services are also repatriating or taking people back to their jurisdiction,
where they
originated from. So again, we're seeing an increase in homelessness. It's mostly a homegrown problem, and personally, it's hard to know at what point do services attract versus services helping. What is that balance? I don't know.
Let's explore it some more right after a break. Thank you for tuning in so far to the Crisis Storm. We'd like to thank a couple of our sponsors, Southgate Business Center up on Laval Crescent, for their continued support. And most recently, Finding a Way Forward and the Crisis Storm has now been sponsored by Forward Law. Kind of ironic. Finding a Way Forward with Forward Law. We'll be right back.
In Kamloops, we're not just lawyers, we're Forward Law. We're about moving you forward. Approachable, caring, and experienced. That's who we are. From contract writing to estate planning, civil litigation to employment law, whatever your need, we've got your back. We push for fair resolutions. We're not afraid to take on the tough cases. Forward-thinking estate planning, strong advocacy, and unwavering support. Forward Law, your partner in progress. Call us today, because your future deserves nothing less. Welcome to the heart of business in Kamloops, Southgate Business Center, your one-stop destination for all your office needs. Conveniently located at 970 Laval Crescent, Southgate Business Center offers more than just office space. Whether you're a startup, a freelancer, or a well-established business, we've got you covered. Need a professional office space? Our offices provide the ideal environment for productivity and success. Planning a meeting or presentation? Elevate your business with our conference room available for rent. At Southgate Business Center, we understand the importance of efficiency. Our secretarial services ensure you have the support you need so you can focus on what matters most, growing your business. For office rentals, conference rooms, secretarial services, and more, contact Southgate Business Center at 250-374-9233 or visit us at 970 Laval Crescent in Kamloops. Southgate Business Center, your destination for success in the heart of Kamloops. Call us today and experience a new level of business excellence.
Welcome back to the Crisis Storm. We're talking to Howie Reimer. Howie, coming from a media background, let's talk a moment about media itself and the role that they play and the trend of where media has gone. I mean, there is no denying that we've lost a little bit of the fifth estate in the last, decade with the onset of social media, citizen journalism, and just a polarization of people online nattering about these issues. What is your perspective on the role that media plays in all of this with the circumstances today?
The attack on journalism is very concerning. When you hear enemy of the people, fake news, that's not helping. Now, that's not to say that there isn't that element out there, but there's always been misinformation, there's always been propaganda, and it is up to you to decipher and discern in what is and what isn't journalism, what is a bias, what is propaganda, who does this media wing support? When there's the suggestion that media is being paid or funded by the federal government, and certainly that's true of the CBC, that's where they get their funding. There are a lot of great people doing a lot of great work at the CBC. And in my time, in my 33 years, I never received a check from anybody telling me to say a particular thing. So journalists are doing a very tough job under very tough circumstances and are getting attacked literally, and some are dying in certain areas. Khashoggi in Turkey and so forth. It's important for you to know what is BS and what is objective journalism, as it's supposed to be. And it's hard to find total objectivity, but it's also up to you to use some of your own smarts and say, okay, well, I subscribe to this, but this seems a little bit skewed. This is obviously has a bias to it. So you need to know how to decipher it.
So speaking about that, as people in community, do you think that we're losing our abilities to rationalize, to change our minds, to learn, to grow, to communicate effectively?
Absolutely. I'm seeing a change in that, and there is, as mentioned, when you get people together, you force people to work together and communicate and exchange ideas without shouting from the polar opposites. That's where you're going to find the difference. But absolutely, I think that social media has done a huge disservice. And the fact that you can, and I'm not saying anything new or profound here, but you find like-minded people in your echo chamber. You can find people that have the same opinions, and you can go down rabbit holes that are totally misguided with misinformation, disinformation, and it's dangerous.
When you think of what good communication is between people, what does that look like to you? Like, is it a weakness to admit that you're wrong and change your mind about something?
No, that's a strength. To say I was wrong on something and I've learned from it. I'll admit, in the first year of doing this job, I made a lot of mistakes, and it was naivety. It was just not knowing those issues as well as I should have. But hopefully I've corrected some of those mistakes, and a lot of it is, again, talking with business owners where maybe I didn't understand the kind of impacts that they were going through, or talking to people that are providing social services and understanding exactly what's happening. You should never stop trying to learn and exchange ideas and be willing to admit you're wrong, but to stay back and just shout about things is not going to get it done. And sounds a little hokey, but collaboratively getting together is the way to do it. We need to do that for a number of reasons, to identify gaps and redundancies and find out where we need to do better, where we're doubling up on things. So communication is huge, and that's usually where things fall down.
You know, when we started first researching this show, I think I stopped printing out my research material reports from agencies here in town, from the city, from coroner's offices, all over the place. Material that I was using to educate myself. And I stopped printing after 2 cases of paper, 10,000 sheets. And I was nowhere near done my beginning research. There is so much information out there, good information, Howie, that's being put out by the city, by frontline agencies, by government. And the reason I'm asking you this is you're fairly new to your position,
yeah.
2 years. You must have gone through the same thing. How do you cope with this massive amount of information and learn and educate yourself without it absolutely becoming all-consuming? Because no one has enough time.
You've heard the cliche, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's all you can do. But also, when you pool resources, you can you can ask some other people to take a bite out of the elephant. And I love elephants, by the way. And printing out all that material is not very sustainable, Peter.
No, I mean, it took me a while to kind of realize that. You're right. You're right. It's not. I mean, I'm a tactile person. I like to make my notes in the margins and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It isn't sustainable.
But that's really what it is. And it can be overwhelming. And I've learned to meditate. And you really need to tackle, it's another analogy, that all the concerns and worries and tasks are the sands of an hourglass. They can only go through one grain at a time. You can't force everything through or you're going to break the hourglass. So you try and prioritize and again be resourceful and use other resources, and that's the way forward, I do believe. But there is so much information, and you tackle it as best you can. I certainly like some of the stuff that AI is providing. I think that's going to be a valuable new tool if you use it right in assisting you with depleting resources.
And tell me more. I haven't thought about AI in the context of this. How could AI assist us in getting our heads around the crises that in our community, communicating?
You ask AI what other programs are seeing success in other jurisdictions around the world that we're not incorporating in our own. It'll give you a list. It's a good starting point. When you're it's a good research tool. And you know, as much as I love books and libraries, this can certainly boil down the process for you in educating yourself.
Almost like a personal assistant.
Yes, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
From your perspective, if you had to change misconception that was out there, if you had to pick one thing that you wish you could change people's minds about in our community, what would it be and why?
That people are working hard, that people care, that people are trying to find solutions, and if you're not, and you're just complaining, you're not helping, and it's time for you to get on board. So the misconception is that people are not doing their jobs. People are, and people really care about this community, and they care about this city, and they care about our citizens, and they care about our lifestyle, and want to improve it. And so get on board. So that's the misconception, I would say, is mostly out there, that there's this apathy. There's not. There's a lot of empathy, sympathy, and hard work.
Okay. So apathy, you don't think is really there from the people in the responsible positions. What about just the impacts of fatigue? We've been at, you mentioned, 2016 is when we really started taking a much deeper look at the opioid epidemic. We're, 8 years in?
What I see is, again, there is so much work going into making a difference, but I'll give you an example. The BIABC, the Business Improvement Areas of British Columbia, our sort of umbrella organization that oversees all the BIAs. They lobbied for a long time to the provincial government on some relief for business regarding vandalism. Again, this is a Band-Aid. This is not preventing the vandalism. This is helping businesses who have been impacted by having their businesses vandalized and want to get some preventative measures through CEPTED, as I'd mentioned before. So much work went into that, and what they were able to accomplish was get the province to come to the table with $10.5 million for this vandalism grant. Sounds pretty good, $10.5 million, but what it means for a business owner is at most $2,000. That maybe is going to cover your deductible on your insurance. It's a cumbersome process, as we often find when you apply for grants or any of these kind of services. They're having a difficult time getting through. So the needle moved a very short distance through a lot of hard work.
That was provincial or federal?
Provincial. This was the provincial government. And so that's what it takes. It takes your foot to the floor as hard as you can go, and you're going to move a very small area. But what are you going to do? You have to continue the advocacy. You have to continue pushing. So there is fatigue, but you see the energy of those in community who continue to push and continue to not wave the white flag and not give up. And that's what it's going to take to continue to move the needle. It's all there is to do is hard work.
You make me tired just thinking about it. We are nowhere near the end of seeing crises in our community. But is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Where do we focus from here? Where are we going to find solutions, do you think, to the crises that we're continually facing? I think a lot of the things that we've talked about so far are symptoms, right? Seeing people on the street, it's a symptom of a deeper underlying issue. How do we find the answers, the solutions to the underlying issues? Where do we look? Where do we go from here?
I think our leaders need to have vision. And I keep mentioning hard work, and that is part of it. But you got to make sure that you're working on the right things. And so vision is huge from our leadership. Where do we want to be? What do we want to work towards? What do we want our community to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road? I honestly do believe that our provincial and federal governments have much more to do. And when I heard the feds announced a program for rental relief a few days ago, again, just that they don't need a handout, or well, they do need a handout as well, but we need to get a handle on housing crisis, the opioid crisis, also reform in our judicial and justice system. That's where it has to happen. I really feel that our provincial governments and our provincial government and federal government need to step up and do more for prevention, for treatment, for recovery, for housing, for affordability, all those things. And we will lobby on that behalf. Our small business owners, as you've heard many times, are integral and are the fabric of our economies. We need to support them.
So it's looking at vision in our leadership from a political perspective and from a community-led organizational perspective.
I think at the higher, I think we have good vision, and as mentioned, we have a lot of people in community who are very frustrated because they're putting Band-Aids on things. We need a more fulsome, holistic vision from our leaders who are not looking just at their 4-year mandate and are looking long-term past when they may or may not be in power. So it's hard, that's a big ask, not to politicize things, because that's what politicians do, and that's what political parties do.
Well, we are going into an election year.
Well, this is a time to lobby for some funds, certainly, but we also want to make sure that again, it's a long-term, it's a long game, and that they're looking past their mandate.
I hate to be a downer, but and I always like to try to stay positive as much as possible. But Howie, what's your biggest fear in all of this?
That we're not going to see good leadership. That we're going to continue to fall behind. Again, I don't think I think we're slipping slowly. So what we need to do is get better, at least slowly, if not make some leaps and bounds. But that's my biggest fear is that we're going to get worse before we get better. And I will continue to work for the latter to get better. And I think that what we see in these groups of people that get together, that social agencies, law enforcement, the BIAs, the chamber, on a more grassroots community level, it's really important that we continue to look for solutions as well, and put the pressure on the people that can really make those changes.
In Kamloops, we're not just lawyers, we're forward law. We're about moving you forward. Approachable, caring, and experienced. That's who we are. From contract writing to estate planning, civil litigation to employment law, whatever your need, we've got your back. We push for fair resolutions. We're not afraid to take on the tough cases. Forward-thinking estate planning, strong advocacy, and unwavering support. Forward Law, your partner in progress. Call us today, because your future deserves nothing less. Welcome to the heart of business in Kamloops, Southgate Business Center, your one-stop destination for all your office needs. Conveniently located at 970 Laval Crescent, Southgate Business Center offers more than just office space. Whether you're a startup, a freelancer, or a well-established business, we've got you covered. Need a professional office space? Our offices provide the ideal environment for productivity and success. Planning a meeting or presentation? Elevate your business with our conference room available for rent. At Southgate Business Center, we understand the importance of efficiency. Our secretarial services ensure you have the support you need so you can focus on what matters most, growing your business. For office rentals, conference rooms, secretarial services, and more, contact Southgate Business Center at 250-374-9233 or visit us at 970 Laval Crescent in Kamloops. Southgate Business Center, your destination for success in the heart of Kamloops. Call us today and experience a new level of business excellence.
I know that in our earlier discussions leading up to the show, in November of last year, you wanted to talk a little bit about the CAP team. For people that don't know, what is CAP, and what does CAP do?
CAP is the Customer Care and Patrol team. You've probably seen them around town. They wear the red jackets, the red caps, and they originally were brought in from a couple of executive directors ago to be ambassadors for the downtown, to help tourists, to direct people to points of interest, to help them with, maybe they're having trouble with a parking meter, help setting up for events. We had a lot of uptake from students for our summer CAP team. It expands in the summer. We get some funding, hopefully from the federal government, and if not, the city has also stepped in.
And the CAP team, correct me if I'm wrong, that's run out of your office?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it runs out of the KCBIA. Now, again, we talk about this collaborative approach. Jeremy Heighton from the NSBIA has reached his hand across the river and said, hey, can we work on perhaps sharing some resources? So he has brought together the CLEAN team, which I think is a fantastic initiative. Again, getting people from different groups and different organizations working together, talking, pooling resources. This is how to move things forward. And then offering the CLEAN team resources to the downtown, and then saying, hey, how about we get some CAP service over on the North Shore? So we've reciprocated, and now the CAP team is also operating on the North Shore. And the one big change, though, is that because of the social ills now, or the social issues that we now see, is that the CAP team has had to shift from this ambassadorship to more stewardship, and that also involves a lot more emphasis on community safety. That also means that you can't pay the minimum wage anymore. So I still think they're underpaid, but we're a nonprofit organization and they're doing a fantastic job, but they now are expected to not do wellness checks, but they're expected to assess situations. So first thing in the morning, I will ask the CAP team, or I'll have driven sort of through part of the downtown and I'll say, okay, we've got a camp set up in front of this business. We've got someone who looks, they're sleeping in this doorway. Can you call either community services or the street advocate, call outreach, but first just go by and do a check. So they'll go and they'll, hey, you okay? The business is gonna be opening soon. You're gonna need to move along. And maybe they're gonna need to call ambulance. So they've got a much bigger role now, and it's not quite as much fun as planning events and setting up for events and helping out and talking to tourists and business owners about more fun things. So it's a tougher job. It's a lot more responsibility. We give them more training. They now get mental health first aid, which is an increased cost to the BIA. They get they've always had first aid training. They get de-escalation and mitigation training as well as some other drug awareness and so forth through the RCMP, note taking, and we also want them to be more in a supportive role to community services. So we want them working in concert with community services who work in concert with the RCMP, and there's sort of a chain of protocols that happen when it comes to dealing with some of the street issues. So they're very valuable.
It's great to see this connection happening between the Central Business Improvement Association and the North Shore Business Association. I love seeing that cross-river communication and collaboration. What about across the other side of the river? Is it important that we start seeing collaboration back and forth between Kamloops and downtown? Are we seeing that? Is it time?
Absolutely, and we are seeing it. And Kamloops has done a fantastic job in their social and economic development. Kudos to Roseanne Casimir and council for the job that they're doing. And as a matter of fact, when we've got our BIA BC conference coming up in April, Roseanne will be Kukpi Casimir will be our opening keynote speaker, and she has been just such an inspiration in seeing her at the chamber event where she has delivered her vision. And you think of the challenges and the traumatic events that we've seen come to light in the last few years, and to see someone with such a progressive, positive outlook is again nothing short of inspirational, and something that I know Jeremy does as well, and I want to be a part of. So Jeremy and I both sit on the Kamloops Business Council. Kamloops is represented there as well. They're a big part of it, and again, we see how we can network, how we can partner, how we can be part of helping each other.
Yeah, I think the advocacy there both ways is important with Kamloops, especially considering the wisdom and the leadership that is there. I mean, she's got an incredible vision. She's not just Kukpi Roseanne for Kamloops. She's now tribal chief.
Yes.
And, I remember when when Roseanne was a small business owner in Sahali Mall with the Wrap Zone, food services business, trying to provide a wholesome, better alternative. I think there's a lot of wisdom there from two-eyed seeing that we can all learn from. I think that is maybe part of the message out there, that a colonial perspective is what got us here, and perhaps an Indigenous perspective is not only what's going to help Indigenous people, but it's also going to help us heal a lot of the wounds that have been caused over the last many decades.
I can't disagree. Yeah, her vision of collaboration, of partnerships, whether that's through, again, social aspects, economic development aspects, it helps everybody. And I think we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a long, long road still, but you're seeing, I think you're seeing a change, and you're seeing an awareness now. And I think a lot of that comes from the 215 and the awareness that has, as tragic and as traumatic as that is, but the awareness that has brought to not only the rest of Canada, but I think the world has been watching as well. But I think there's a lot of people, and I think that are on board with reconciliation and bridging the gap. I know there's a lot of work, you know, I don't profess to know everything about UNDRIP, but we're talking, we're moving forward, and hopefully you know, First Nations and Indigenous communities are seeing a shift.
I know that in the past, you can maybe speak to the present, but in the past we have seen definitely an unfair proportion of street entrenched people being from an Indigenous background. Does that still persist?
There certainly is. There's people represented from numerous communities, and certainly the Indigenous community. I know that they're overrepresented in our jails and in incarceration, and we certainly do see it on the streets. And I think, again, those partnerships with Kamloops, hopefully for a better understanding and for sharing of services and sharing of solutions can be a part of it. But yeah, absolutely. We haven't done those kind of counts, but yes, the Indigenous community is certainly represented in the homeless and the unhoused and the mentally health and addicted.
Right. We've talked a lot about the crises in our community today, and I appreciate you coming out. Just before we close, just wondering if you have any final thoughts. You know, what could we ask our viewership, our listenership, whether they be someone that's just in the general public, that's a resident of Kamloops, not necessarily a business owner, or perhaps they are a business owner. What is within their power to do that you think they should be focusing on as we work towards solutions here?
Open your mind. Help look for solutions. You can be critical, but try to do it in a constructive and helpful way. And we can move things forward if we're all pulling in the same direction. It's a long process, and it's going to take time. And but don't give up, and and again, let's do it together. It sounds hokey, but the reason that cliche is there is because that is the way forward.
Awesome. Any final thoughts? Anything that we haven't really covered that you thought perhaps I'm going to ask?
I don't think so. I just want to say that I'm proud of our downtown. I love I love this city. That's why I live here. And we've got so much to be thankful for and grateful for. And you know what? It's one of the fastest growing communities, and that's because we do have such great amenities, and we've got fabulous parks, and we've got fantastic outdoor recreation. We've got our beautiful downtown, and the people. One of the reasons when I moved from the Lower Mainland, and people look you in the eye and they say hello to you when you move up here, and there's a really great support network, and it's the people that really make this community what it is.
Excellent. You know, it just, when you said that, people look at you, they say hello. I had a picture in my head of walking down the street and seeing one of these people that have been affected by tragedy, by the crises that is living on the street. And we have a tendency to want to, like you said earlier, walk out onto the street, walk around. It's not my problem. You know, it's almost like I don't want to catch that, as though it were, you know, communicable or transferable as a virus. What would you suggest people do the next time they're faced in that circumstance?
We've heard Jeremy Hyten's philosophy of, first of all, be kind, be calm, be firm, ask for help. Boy, he's taught me.
You've got that memorized. That's good.
He's taught me well. You know what? And all kidding aside, he's been a great mentor in the 2 years that I've been in this position. He's just been fantastic. Thank you, Jeremy, whatever camera I'm supposed to be looking at. And it is challenging sometimes, as I've said. You do need to keep yourself safe, and we've seen instances of where things have gone sideways in other jurisdictions, and we've seen vigilantism and this kind of thing. But for the most part, people are just trying to get by. Mm-hmm. People are just trying to get through the day. And a little kindness does go a long way, and getting them on to services and to help does help as well. So whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, I'm not going to mandate people to act any specific way, except that you're probably not going to get a lot of traction yelling. You know, when I engage them, I am firm. I might not be as kind as Jeremy would like me to be, but I do ask people, are you okay? Is there, you know, mention that the businesses are going to be opening soon, you know, but things don't escalate unless they don't move along. But again, treat people the way you want to be treated. Treat people with respect. Respect is huge, no matter who it is.
Good thought. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I would really think you're doing a great service by providing this. I've watched a lot of the series, and I'll continue to do so. I hope I helped some understanding. I hope that you'll continue to do the series.
I appreciate it. Thank you. You've been watching The Crisis Storm. Please support our sponsors that help to support this continued work. And currently, that is the Southgate Business Center on Laval Crescent and Forward Law, as we seek to find a way forward here with The Crisis Storm. All of us at the Crisis Storm podcast would like to thank our sponsors for their support and care for the community of Kamloops and its residents. First, the Southgate Business Center at 970 Laval Crescent in Kamloops provides rental offices and rental boardroom and secretarial services. I've personally been a customer of Southgate since the 1990s, and I highly recommend them. Second, the Crisis Storm and our overall project Finding a Way Forward would like to thank our most recent sponsor, Forward Law. We're also a client of this sponsor, and I can say with authority that Forward Law does truly care about this community and its residents. And they do great work. If you need to move forward with something important, then David and Alana Hughes and their awesome team at Forward Law might be a firm you should consider. If you found value in this episode of The Crisis Storm, please don't forget to give us a like and share it with others. Thank you for joining the conversation and being part of the solution to the many crises we face in community. Crisis Storm is a production of Mastermind Studios in association with the AIMCanada Mentorship Society, an episodic 1-hour audio and video podcast series to inform and engage better conversations in our community around the collective crises stemming from homelessness, economy, mental health, crime, healthcare, addictions, the environment, and a breakdown in good human communication. For more information on the Crisis Storm podcast series and the documentary film project titled Finding a Way Forward, please visit findingawayforward.com.